Hello and welcome to the CRM Zen Show, where we talk about all things Zoho. This is episode 120, Resplendent CRM Demigod. Recorded on Friday, November 13th, 2020 from Zenatta Consulting. I'm Brett Martin.
And I'm Tyler Colt, and let's get right on into the show.
We'll get straight here with our usual announcements that are going on. We've got our Sales IQ webinar, Overview and Best Practices. That is going to be on November 24th at 10 a.m. You can go to our website and you can, there's a link on the homepage to go ahead and sign up for that, or the link will be in the newsletter. We hope to see you there. We're actually having a pretty detailed conversation about it yesterday, Tyler. There's just so much to cover with that application.
Yeah, at the surface, it seems very simple, but underneath the hood, there's a lot going on.
I don't know what we're going to have to pick and choose to leave out in the hour that we're going to try to cram that thing into, but we will see. All right, we'll start with Zoho News. So Zoho updated a bunch of apps for macOS Big Sur, which if you are a Apple laptop or desktop user, you will know that is the latest and greatest OS that they just released yesterday. By the way, that was fun. Still haven't got my 2019 i9 27-inch 5K iMac to update. It kept throwing out errors and errors, and then my laptop was throwing the same errors, but when I rebooted it actually was able to do it. But man, it's like an hour process for this thing. It's
Gotcha.
A nice update though. Makes a lot of nice changes. And so they've basically, they're bringing all those kind of nifty things directly to Zoho now. So some really interesting parts here. They're focusing on Biggin again, because they're basically doing all of the various widgets and all of the if there's all these different things that can kind of go into Big Sur that you can do that look pretty interesting, and it
actually looks like they also have one for the desktop as well for your actual Mac OS.
Yeah,
so not just talking about the phones. These are actually basically deployed by Mac Catalyst, meaning that they're going to look and feel pretty similar to the iPad equivalents, but.
Yep.
I know for me, we talk about this a lot, but I always prefer having something on my desktop if there is ever a native app. Every now and then you'll find that sometimes with Zoho, there's a couple things that you can only do in the actual browser version, but for kind of day-to-day usage, I do love having it just directly on the desktop.
Yeah, and this so they've written a Begin app, which is brand new. So, which is going to basically run on your desktop. Then they've done the same with books, invoice, expense, and inventory. They've had those apps for a while. It's interesting. They actually have native apps, and then they've gone ahead and they've released their and sometimes there are Catalyst apps as well. So it's kind of different, pick or choose. This whole thing is blending with, especially if you're an iOS user or a Mac user, because now with the Apple Silicon, you actually can run the apps. You can actually run iPad and iPhone apps directly on your PC. That's going to be interesting to see how this all goes. I do know a lot of clients that actually prefer the Zoho iPad app over the desktop app, and they like using that just kind of from quick and easy. I'm really fascinated with this Biggin app though, because we were talking to another client the other day that said wants to add 50, 60 users. They're going to be sales guys. He wants it down and dirty. He wants it simple. That could actually be our first Zoho one Biggin deployment, where they are just having that simple look into the CRM. There are some strange things though. It looks like attachments. We need to work on that, getting those pulled over if you're going to do that synchronization. And then they also added Notebook, kind of an outlier here, but their Notebook app is getting better and better and better. They're investing a lot in this, so good on Zoho. And we've talked about it before, but Zoho is an Apple house. Everybody's got MacBooks, everybody's got iPhones, so it's kind of a good thing. All righty, and then we've got our Zoho Recruit October Roundup. I'm not sure. I think we covered most of these, Tyler. I'm not particularly sure. The big one that I came up with here, because we talked about Hacker Earth, is they now have an entire set up internally for I'm just hiring a remote job. I don't know how this is because job posts always said whether or not it's remote or on site. I'm not sure what they've done, but they've added something directly for remote job postings. But I think we covered the rest of this. But if you're a Recruit user, there is your Roundup. And then our last one is I'm dying to get your opinion on this. Now, did I miss this? I think not. I think Gamescope was just added to Desk. Had you seen it there before?
No, I don't think they had Gamescope. They had a couple of kind of features in the same vein, but it looks like they've rolled them all into Gamescope. And for those who haven't used it, Gamescope is originally part of the CRM that allows you to try to gamify the user experience. So, for example, you could run a little contest where, you get certain amounts of points for closing out tasks, for converting leads, maybe for winning deals, and you can assign little trophies or kind of general gamification. Nothing quite at the level of what you were doing in Motivator, where you're assigning those kind of like real prizes and things, and you're getting those dashboards. But it's another version of a similar idea where you're assigning some point values to CRM activity. And it looks like they rolled this over to Zoho Desk to be able to have some of those same types of games. And I think it's a pretty good transition for it. I mean, it makes sense, and you're kind of running through closing tickets, logging resolutions, right? There's a lot of different types of things that I think can be gamified inside of Desk. So I think it's a good ad.
It is. It's interesting. This is clearly because Motivator has it been end of life? I know it was any day now.
No, they bumped it back. They bumped it back about a month ago. So there's a little bit more runway before it gets sunsetted.
Okay. But this has got to be part of that. So, it doesn't say it's brand new on this little article, but it's got the little sparklies under the setup. It's strange. It's not activated by default as it is in CRM. You actually have to go and you've got to turn it on. Pretty straightforward to turn it on. Just go into settings. We've got that in the newsletter on how to do it. But, look, it is a powerful application. I mean, on the CRM side, I have clients that run, you can run reports to say, hey, how many tasks did a person complete? How many phone calls did a person make? How many deals did they close? All of these kind of things. I actually have we have a client that runs daily contests and really doesn't use them as a contest, but goes back into the contest and just looks at the previous, just kind of goes through the previous days so we can see how everybody was actually doing. And they're there for 8 hours, and these are people that are just basically on the phone, supposed to be doing work. And you can really see when someone just kind of had a day where they maybe weren't there, so to speak. And so one of those things, but there's a lot you can do with it. I think it can actually motivate people to do it. We don't see a lot of Gamescope. We have not deployed virtually any real Gamescope because we've done everything in Motivator. So this is going to be kind of an interesting thing here as we move forward. We'll have to, hopefully Gamescope gets more and more robust. If you get the ability to sling it to a TV, if it has the ability to update in real time.
Yeah, it's those reports and dashboards, but I think that's where they're going to house it. They haven't really said it yet where those Motivator style dashboards are going to go, but I'd have to imagine that that's, where they'll end up. And if they do, I think that'll be a good replacement because you have a lot of the same scoring that you can do in there.
Yeah. All right. We've got some CRM updates now. Now I will tell you, I sat on this update. It was 7 days ago. I could have included it last time, but it's just weird. And I wanted to see what it was. So basically here's what's going on. If you are in the CRM and let's say you're in a contact and you're creating a contact and you want to assign an account to that contact, but the account doesn't exist. In the past, you could just type an account name. When you save the record, it would then create an account, but the account would have nothing but a name and it would be completely blank. That is not going to be allowed anymore. And if you're actually in the CRM now, it will tell you that coming soon, you won't be able to do that. It's got a little thing. And that soon date is going to be on December 15th for existing users, and brand new users, it's just there. So on November 9th, it actually was, it's there and you can use it. But all it really does is just pop up a box and it's going to require you to fill in some basic information.
And it looks like it's pulling from your quick create screen, which you can actually design what's going to show up there in the modules and fields customization. And, I'm interested to see, they're saying they're mandating the fields. When I look at the images, they don't have the little red lines where phone and website look like they would be mandatory. So I'm interested to see, because, for some of these, if they're going to mandate that an account has a phone number, well, not everyone is always going to store a phone number at an account level, right? Some people are going to store individual phone numbers for contacts. So I'll be interested to see, kind of how they handle that, because if you read it, it sounds like they're going to mandate some of these fields that they're showing, but hopefully they'll be giving people the ability to choose what shows up there, because everyone kind of has different parameters that they require in an account. So I'd be a little hesitant to start mandating that, every single account has to have a unique phone or something like that.
Well, the strange part was it says you can customize the quick create form to your requirement. Henceforth, to create a new account manually, the user has to fill in the quick create form. Great. But it seems like you could totally customize. When you go down below, though, you have people asking like, hey, please add the industry field to the list of mandatory fields when creating an account. Thank you for your feedback. We'll forward this to the team. Seems like you're able to do that, right? And then someone says, I would suggest you show all mandatory fields. It's crazy. And hey, Kevin, I see you've been in here talking to him about this as well. So it's going to be kind of an interesting thing. We'll see what happens as they go down the road with this. But I think it's good. It'd be nice to see that for other things as well. I just think there's some other use for that. So at least it keeps it cleaner, because you do end up with just hundreds of accounts that are just account names.
Yeah.
Right? Forcing that. All right. And then we are basically changing API notations. So no more dots. We're getting rid of dots, and we're going to now use the double underscore. Talk to me, Tyler.
Yeah, and so it looks like this is really referring to the Zoho Sign integration for Zoho CRM.
Yep.
So it's kind of just a minor change where you'll need to update your some of your custom code, specifically Deluge code, when you are making API notation. So I think it's just going to be a minor change. Control F, find all your dots, replace them out for these double underscores, but nothing too major. I'm curious why they're doing it. Maybe it's just kind of an overall notation update. But it only really does apply, again, for the Sign and Zoho CRM integration when you're kind of writing back and forth between those apps.
Well, since I'm not doing much of this at all anymore, it seemed like the dot was just it seems much more simpler than the double underscore. Do we understand the reason for it? Is there some sort of standardization they're trying for here?
Well, some of them, a lot of the actions run via dots. So if you have a payload, you do dot get, right? To run the get function. Maybe they just want to delineate a little bit more between the types of things. But again, kind of just a minor update there before we move on to one that we have been hoping to talk about here for a little while.
All right. So Zoho meeting updates dropped. This actually dropped about an hour and a half after we finished recording last week's show. So a whole bunch of updates to Zoho meetings. The big one is, according to this, recordings are more reliable with a more robust recording engine, which ensures your recording does not become corrupt even if a server crash occurs unexpectedly. Not sure what it means, but we have not tested it out yet. But that's the big one. And I know that the recording engine in meetings is the same recording engine in Showtime. So if in fact they fix this, that's just awesome news, because we love Showtime. It's just, it's good stuff here. I'm happy about this.
Yeah, and it's basically the big prohibitor for us in terms of really using, Zoho Meeting, and especially Zoho Showtime, and that you do just need those recordings. Both of them in general are great applications. I was actually on a Zoho Meeting maybe a week or two ago, and the new UI that they have in there is super nice. It's got great features. So and kind of iron out a couple of these little technical things behind the scenes, and it looks like they are doing that, then I think it's going to be ready for prime time.
Well, we should get an hour on the calendar and just test the crud out of this.
Let's try to break it.
Yeah, let's, the big problem I've had with meeting is, I didn't mind that the UI was a little funky, but if, let's say you're on a call and you're running 5 minutes late to your next meeting, it just doesn't do anything. It doesn't put you in a waiting room. It just basically says, sorry, the person hasn't started yet, check back later. And you constantly have to refresh that URL to see if the person's ever going to start, which isn't the way anybody else does it. It puts you in a waiting room, and as soon as the meeting starts, it lets you know. So there are a couple little things there, but we we actually had a partner meeting the other day where I think a lot of partners were beating them up about a lot of this kind of stuff. And they seem pretty adamant that they're doing everything and anything they can in their power to make it better. So I'm going to take them at their word, and hopefully it gets there. Also, talked a little bit about a bunch of extensions, but we got a whole bunch of new ones for Zoho Analytics. And I don't know if we talked about this in the past, but I don't remember seeing Shopify. And I know we
Some
had
of these
YouTube.
have been there for a little while, actually. YouTube, I mean,
Have
we've
they?
had YouTube set up in analytics for a while now. So this is confirming our suspicion that these aren't always new. I think we're coming to find when they like to re-announce some of these. Because Shopify, I think they rolled out a while back. I know Zoho Inventory has been there for a while. So maybe these are kind of just some recaps that they send out.
It's kind of strange because the title of this is, 7. These are
new on Marketplace.
New. Yeah, I don't know how they're doing that either. And I know Sage, we've talked about this in depth in the past. I just want to put this up. I didn't know if anything grabbed your attention here since you live in analytics. Like, oh, we wanted that one for a long time.
Yeah, I know, LinkedIn may be new here.
The ad
Looking
campaigns.
at LinkedIn ad campaigns. It would definitely be a slick one to have.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, let's move on to our mobile app update. So Zoho Writer got a really cool update for iOS, Android, and iPad, where no matter if you're on your desktop or if you're on the mobile, you actually can see on the mobile how the version's going to look, right? You can view it on the web. You can use this page view and really get a good idea of, how exactly it's going to look no matter where you're at, which it was never really doing before. The whole page view, you really could never get a good idea when you created something in Writer how it was going to look on different formats. This is nice. And they've also drastically increased their loading time on larger documents, which was kind of a bit of a problem as well. And then they've smoothed things out on the iPad significantly. So, a lot of work going on here. This is mostly tune-up stuff, I think.
Yep.
Yes, it's one feature and a lot of little tune-ups, but it's nice to see Writer kind of continue to get these updates.
Yeah, it's always one of those apps that you've always kind of liked working inside of Writer. I think it's a powerful tool given the Zoho automations, but I don't spend a lot of time writing out docs in it quite like you do.
Yeah, I live in Writer. I really like Show. We don't use Show because there's just various reasons when we do it. There's just too many things. It's just got minor things that for these presentations that we do that it just doesn't the play and all the other stuff is just not perfect. And there's some little things there, but it's getting really close. I know I don't know if we talked about this, but I actually now have the entire, I was given the instructions for the migration, and we've been authorized for a migration. So we can do the full migration from Google Drive now to Work Drive. And that's kind of the big thing. Once we do that full migration and get everything over, to kind of get everyone in these different applications. I love their Sheets. I think it's as good as Google Sheets. The Writer, I prefer it. It's got a lot more power and functionality. Google hasn't really done anything with Google Docs,
Not in a while.
Yeah, it's just kind of the basic application there. So they're improving it. They're doing a lot with it. I mean, basically they live in it. So it's a pretty good thing there. And before we move on to the next story, this is just kind of an outlier. I don't have this in the doc. I threw it in at the end, but a little bit of Zoho news that kind of broke late last night. Some press releases that came out. But Zoho did a partnership with Tata Consulting Services. And if you don't know, that's kind of like your Anderson Cooper, it's not Anderson Cooper. That's pretty funny. It's kind of like it's
Price Waterhouse Cooper,
Price Waterhouse Cooper and Anderson Consulting, or Anderson Cooper on CNN. You take your choice. So it's kind of like, they're a big consultancy in India. I think they're a $23 billion division of the parent Tata, which is, they make cars, they do everything. It's just a huge conglomerate over there. Anyway, they partnered now. And so for going after pure enterprise business with the Zoho suite, I think this is great news. Because if you can get someone like that, Zoho starts listening to them. I mean, you can really start get some of these applications more enterprise ready, right? I mean, in a way they can be, but oftentimes when we run into big enterprise accounts, there are just things they want to get done that it can't do. And you end up having to go to an Oracle or something of that nature. And if this gets this could really drive some really nice innovation. So kind of a last minute thing, didn't really fit in the doc anywhere, but I thought I would throw it out. All righty. So moving on, I want to talk about this. This is new. It's called This Week's Zoho Events. So we've really been building out the calendar over at CRM Zen, and there's just a lot coming up this week. So on the 16th, there's a Zoho CRM for Administrators workshop, and we've got a coupon code in there for you as well. Get you 30% off on that. And then they've got managing products versus projects on the 16th as well with Sridhar. Also on the 16th, business website basics. And then you've got a Zoho books for administrator classroom training coming up on the 17th. On the 18th, integrating Zoho Creator with Zoho Inventory and Zoho Work Drive. And then our show on the 20th. That kind of rounds out the week. The interesting part is Zoho is really odd about some of these things. They literally drop these announcements the day before. And so we get them and we put them on here. Now here you can see we've got a week, but there's a lot of these things. I guarantee you there'll be 3 or 4 more webinars that we'll just fill in next week. But there's a lot of good content out there. Some of it is part of Zoho Spark and you have to pay for it. But most of this is free and we're kind of just dropping it in. And so take a look at the calendar. I think it's a great resource and we hope you enjoy it. And that's it. And that brings us to an interview we did this week. So we actually had the opportunity to talk to Peter Fuller. He is the founder of the Workflow Academy, and him and his team have been working extremely hard to make really, really great content for Zoho to train both end users and administrators on Zoho. And there's some just great stuff here. And with that, let's go to the interview. Hey, and we're joined today by Peter Fuller. He is the founder of the Workflow Academy, and it is a website or learning platform dedicated basically to training people up on Zoho. And we get asked about this a lot from our clients, from other people. How do I learn Zoho? What are the best resources to go to? We make an effort to keep our resource libraries up to date where people can go there. But Peter, you've kind of taken this to the next level now. You are putting together some really, really nice courses to get people started on Zoho. So tell us a little bit about the Workflow Academy.
Thanks for having me on the Howard Stern of Zoho. I'm excited to talk. The idea of the Workflow Academy, fairly basic premise. We felt like a Zoho partner, a Zoho consultant, someone who's been building Zoho for years, like we have, could teach the Zoho platform even better than Zoho itself. We spend time in systems all day. We actually work with businesses in a variety of verticals. And so we felt like, you know what, let's actually teach this to business people. Let's teach this to kind of the type of people that are our clients. So that was kind of the basic premise. We really focus on making it really approachable. A lot of our initial courses are free. That's by design. We want people to be able to hop in and take a whack at learning Zoho and kind of trust our content. We also have a pretty big focus on actually like applying the things that you're learning as you're taking the course. This isn't an hour-long webinar where you just sit there listening to someone talk at you. We're talking 2-minute quick video hits, and then you're asked to go add a workflow rule or create a mail merge template or other cool stuff like that. So it really is, the feedback we're getting is it's much more approachable than anything else that's out there. And it's a lot more effective.
So you seem to break your courses down into, you've got 3 categories here. It looks like CRM, Finance Suite, and Sign, actually, and as well as Deluge. Yes. As you look at those, I know you've been building this out over time. And what are you getting the most traction on right now? What do people seem to be most interested in? And kind of as a follow-up to that, where do you guys think you're heading?
Yeah, so we kind of have 2 tracks. The first are, and this might be a lot of the people listening to this show, our CRM courses really do a good job, for the people that are kind of just getting into CRM. It sets the table, helps them understand. Again, feedback is better than anything else out there on YouTube or even that Zoho has produced. So really the beginning CRM user, we have a really, really nice net to catch them in to help them understand all the functionality. But we've also gotten a ton of traction. I don't want to spook anyone. Our Deluge custom scripting courses. I'm not a programmer by trade at all, but over the years, we figured Deluge out, and I realized that it's a heck of a lot simpler than anyone thought, and it opens up a lot of opportunity within the Zoho suite. So we've been getting a lot of interest in our demystifying Deluge. We really, in our experience, Zoho has taught Deluge to people assuming that they already are developers that know how to develop. We've been taking the opposite approach. We teach Deluge assuming that you're not a developer. And we taught a 62-year-old CPA from Nashville who had no programming experience. She is now, she has custom functions running out of Zoho Recruit, creating bills and Zoho books. It's really awesome to see. So that's kind of our two tracks.
So kind of the Deluge course that everybody seems to take when they're getting started, there's only really been one, which was kind of Jeremy Nagel's Deluge on a Luge, which you can get over on Udemy. But you've kind of taken more of a different approach here. This is, because I know that course kind of refers you out to, hey, go take a JavaScript course to get some foundation here and some other stuff. And we've always put our people through that to get them going as well. So whole different kind of ground up approach, simplifying it and breaking it down.
Absolutely. Jeremy, I love that guy. That guy he's the Greek god of Deluge. But again, Jeremy's an extremely experienced developer who assumes that what you're going to want to do is get in immediately and make a JavaScript widget or run some awesome code through a creator app, when in reality, most of us, all we want to do at the beginning is automatically create an invoice in Zoho Books when a deal gets closed in Zoho CRM, right? Or send create a Zoho sign contract and send it from a CRM blueprint. Simple stuff like that doesn't require JavaScript, that doesn't really require much coding knowledge. That's where I like to start people out.
I think one of the nice things about courses like this as well, we found with some of our clients, is that even if you're not doing it yourself, understanding what the toolboxes are, and what we can use to put things together can be a powerful value. I mean, some of our clients nowadays have seen some of the scripts that we've written can kind of request things pretty specifically now that they're aware of what's behind the scenes.
And it's interesting because I'm trying to teach it. That is kind of my background. My business partner, he taught himself Deluge. And then I would request things of him to write them in Deluge. And then he's like, just get into the function and look at it. It's not that hard. So it's been cool, Tyler, to see some of my clients do that same thing. Take my courses and then go back and read through functions we've written and say, oh, cool, I can adjust this myself. I don't need you anymore. And I say, great. I mean, I'm losing some revenue, but it's nice that you don't have to bug me anymore.
So I love your site. It's really tongue-in-cheek. My favorite course title has to be Becoming a Resplendent Zoho CRM Demigod. Are you going to have a follow-up to that where you can become a CRM god? Demigod anymore?
There's Demigod. Maybe it's like upload your consciousness into Zoho CRM and become one with it. I don't know. I'm thinking about it.
I think that's the next product addition to Zia, is actually absorbing human consciousness. Yeah,
exactly.
No, I mean, for those of you, if you're watching us on video, you've got on the 8th day, God created Zoho, and we said, thanks, God, we love it. But there's I'm assuming that's bitch of a learning curve here. But, it's hysterical. You got some good stuff here. So anyway, second part of that question was, what's coming down the road?
Yeah, again, kind of down that same track. We really, on the beginner track, we want to demystify all of the Zoho apps. Really, the only app that requires Deluge for it to really be powerful, I'd say, is Creator. The rest of the Zoho apps, if you have an experienced hand kind of walking you through, it's not that hard to get set up and running. So we have analytics courses coming down the pipe that'll teach you some extremely basic SQL and get you up and running, building a lot of the dashboards you want yourself. Same thing with Desk, same thing with Books. So really kind of just demystifying each of the apps. But I'd be lying. I know that I want to teach to non-developers. At the same time, I have this vision where other people will fall in love with Deluge like I have. Other non-programmers will learn. So we also have some really cool stuff coming down the pipe that's a lot more advanced Deluge capabilities, serverless functions out of CRMs, developing your own widgets. That we'll have to do in conjunction with JavaScript courses and probably with Jeremy's stuff. But I really my path in Deluge has been about 2 years of just building and growing and learning. And I'd love to be able to cut that timeline down to 6 months for someone, where rather than having to hack through functions and chat with Zoho and learn that they miscapitalized an API name because it's not in the documentation correctly, I'd love for someone to be able to just follow our courses, read our GitHub, steal our functions, apply them in their own systems. I'd love to really create an army of smart Deluge developers.
Yeah, one of the things that we've noticed about the courses too is that they seem to do a good job of teaching the data structure as well. Because that's one of the big things about Deluge is if you know what's behind the code and how things are stored and kind of how they work behind the scenes, even if you're still kind of having to bang your head into the keyboard a little bit, that target and know what you can do.
Absolutely. And I'm happy Tyler brought that up. Zenatta's experience with my courses is they've actually hired one currently, and they're interviewing others of the developers that we put through this course. So one of our initiatives, and this ties in a little bit with Zoho's kind of ideas of rural revitalization and training and upskilling people and getting them better jobs. We actually have been running, if you click, Brett, on the career growth tab, you can see a Become a Zoho Developer. We've been partnering with a few Zoho consultancies, and then we're out in Utah in the southwestern United States. So we've been partnering with some organizations. We're trying to actually teach smart people how to use Zoho and then get them jobs as Zoho admins, as Zoho developers. So it really is. We want to teach the current Zoho users. But we see a talent gap of smart Zoho consultants. And so we're trying to train people and kind of have this become a viable career path. Everyone's heard of a friend who works as a Salesforce administrator. We want to kind of do the same thing for Zoho. We want to make it so you can tell your mom, I'm a Zoho administrator. And they're like, oh yeah, mom knows what that is.
Yeah, it's worked out well. I mean, we've been really, really pleased with it. It's kind of like you kind of nurture them along real well, and yours is a very warm and cuddling environment. And then they come to us, and Tyler just throws them into the firing pan, makes them walk over some hot coals, hardens up a little more, and we see if they make it. But so far, it's been great. So you've got about 6 free courses people can check out right now. There are 5 of them that are paid. Is there a subscription for this, or is it just kind of purchase your courses individually?
Subscriptions coming down the pipe right now. We will have lifetime memberships as well as kind of time-based, get access for 6 months. The pricing I feel like is extremely reasonable. The most expensive course comes in at $129, but that's the Resplendent CRM Demigod one. That's the one that just changes the game for everyone. The rest of them, I'd say, are fairly reasonably priced, between $39 to $69. And again, don't take my word for it. Take the free courses, see if your learning style matches what I teach, see if it's useful, and then the paid courses only ever build on free courses.
Well, hey, Peter, you're doing just a fantastic job here. I love seeing this thing grow. I love the direction it's going. And actually, you've got a special offer for our CRM Zen listeners. Is that correct?
Yeah, the code, you'll see the code in the description. The code is CRM Zen 2020. It's a 20% off of our courses. That doesn't apply to the free courses. I will not be paying you to take the free courses, but for the paid ones, if you want to take a whack, 20% off. And there's also, we have a 14-day back or money back guarantee. So if you do pay for one and then you say, this guy is a dummy, I hate him, hopefully not that much vitriol towards me, but we're happy to honor that refund policy. So we want to make it risk-free for you to try out this content. We've gotten a lot of great feedback. We think you'll love it.
Yeah, great stuff. Again, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll have you back on the show soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Good talking.
So anyway, we hope you enjoyed that. I think we can all do with becoming resplendent CRM demigods, and that's everyone's goal in this whole thing. So it's anyway, we really enjoyed having Peter on. We'll have him. We'll keep in touch. He's constantly updating things. But Peter, thanks for joining us on the show. And with that, let's move on to our implementation of the week. What do you got for us, Tyler?
Yes, this is one that we kind of, we built out for a pretty specific use case, but we think could be applied, generally for a lot of different people. And it's basically a scheduled script that runs mass auto-deduplication in the CRM. So basically one of our clients, similar, it's almost a segue from what we were talking about earlier with the account names. Basically, they just had a ton of duplicated accounts that were all generated basically through that process of just adding in an account on a deal. And basically most of them didn't have any data. And what we did is we put together a little script that can find and merge those duplicate accounts. And it does it in a pretty elegant way. Basically what it's able to do is iterate through the accounts, and we're actually looking through a specific custom view so that we're filtering out any accounts that are flagged as customers or active prospects, meaning that like someone is logging into those regularly, right, and working on them. So we don't want to touch them in any type of automated script. The script as well filters those accounts out. So we kind of catch it on both ends, both with a custom view and with some filters. And basically what it does is when it identifies a duplicate account, it coalesces their fields, meaning it doesn't just take one of the accounts and use all of their fields as the primary and delete the others. It basically goes line by line through all of the accounts and takes whichever value is not empty for each of the fields. Now, we put in a little bit of logic here around priority, like if they were filled in two different accounts, take the one that was created or updated most recently, thinking that's going to be the more accurate value. So it has a little bit of controls in terms of which one is going to end up going into the field. But yeah, it's really just kind of slick because it iterates all those fields and, coalesces them, bringing the non-null values into the final account. And then it deletes whichever of the accounts are not going to be determined as the primary so that you don't have them sitting in there anymore. And last but not least, it does update that final primary account to basically flag it that it has now been deduplicated, which removes it from our custom view so that when the script runs the next day, it's not running on the same accounts over and over again to keep the custom function usage down. So it's a pretty interesting script here because, this is a client who has, over 1 million accounts in their system. So they're a pretty heavy user. So manual deduplication is just not really an option. Right. I mean, even if you had an army of data entry people getting through 1 million accounts where, 20, 30% of them may be duplicates is just going to be a big labor effort. So with a script like this, you can basically set it up that every day, it's set to run through maybe about 1,000 or 2,000, maybe more accounts. I forget where we set the limit. So it's basically able to automate this over time, and it manages your custom function usage by kind of spacing things out day over day. And it's one of those set it and forget it scripts where, in a month or so, basically all their duplicates will be removed from the system.
Nice. And the log, do we actually delete them or we're just flagging them so then they can manually delete them, take a quick review of them, or is it we're just killing them?
They're being deleted. They could be flagged for review before deletion. But in this case, because we have the filters set up, our client pretty much knows that most of these are junk. And most of these are empty with just an account name. We do the coalescence of the fields just to be safe in case there is good data in there, but they're mostly junk. They want to keep at least one of the account names in there so that, you can follow up on it later. But
so this really prevents the Zoho method is if it's an absolute perfect match, then we'll go ahead and merge it for you automatically. If not, you have to manually review and choose. We're basically
choose which fields. So this basically is automating
it. Nice.
Yeah. It's automating that choice so that you don't have to have someone click through and say, I want all the empty fields from this account rather than the other.
How big a script was this?
Not actually that big. This one, I'll give a shout out to Greg. He wrote this in a very clever way. So for anyone out there who does play with Deluge, he uses the .keys function. So you don't actually have to manually touch all the fields in the script, which would make it super long. The keys function gives you a list of all of the field names, and then he iterates through that. So there's a lot of nested if statements, but it's actually not that long of a script because, Greg came up with some really clever ways to write it elegantly.
Nice. All right, so that brings us to our reads of the week. So I really like this article. It basically revisits what a pipeline stage is. And he says, pipelines are really emotions. And he says, what a real pipeline is, a person's indifferent, then they're intrigued, then they have a fear of missing out, and then they're satisfied, and then they're happy. Evidently, they've got pride that they've bought this product and that they're using it now. And, we're oftentimes, Tyler, talking to clients who we look at their CRM and they've never changed the stages inside their deals or opportunities. They're just kind of the canned ones that came out of the box. Yep. And they really don't reflect their sales process at all. And it's one of those things where, we have to go through and say, well, what is your real sales process and what happens at each one of these stages of your sales process? What can be automated? Who needs to do what? Who needs to be notified? What tasks need to be assigned? And you kind of go through it. And I think this is a really fresh way of looking at building out your pipeline and what your pipeline should look like. It's really interesting CRM, by the way. This is companies called NetHunt CRM. It's one of the, another one that plugs into Google, but I took a quick look at it. It's not bad, kind of down and dirty, but it, more of a kind of a Kanban kind of thing, which most of the ones for Gmail are. But he's got a great take on this, and I like it.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting way to put the pipeline stages in terms of where the customer is. Oftentimes, the pipeline stages that'll end up getting built out is like, discovery call, quote sent, negotiation. But all of those are where we at the company are at in the process. This is kind of a way to flip it and show where the customer is at in their buying cycle. I think this could be interesting because you can always have, maybe once you enter the intrigue stage, let's queue up what tasks we need to complete in order to potentially move them to the, fear of missing out stage, right? So you can have your tasks for internal things and kind of track the customer cycle in those stages. So I do think it's a good way to kind of flip the deal stages to a new perspective. It's a good read.
Yeah, not bad at all. And then over on Zenatta.com, we have got several things, business payroll that isn't awful with Zoho payroll, just probably the worst title of an article we've ever written. But anyway, we're talking about, we got to have a talk. This is Zoho payroll, which is good, by the way. The problem with Zoho payroll for anyone listening in our audience is all of your employees need to be in California or Texas right now to use it, or they'll need to be in India. That's it. Those are your choices. So they're planning on rolling it out. It is getting better. It integrates with Zoho People. It integrates with Zoho Books. It's really good, but just not quite there yet. But if you are in one of those, everybody in your company's in Texas or everybody's in California and you're using Zoho Books, it's probably worth talking about. It's not bad. I mean, that's not our case. So we use ADP, but it's a good product and they're making a lot of progress with it all. And then we kind of got a detailed resource guide that we found on Zoho signals and how to set them up. And this is a lot of pages basically, but these are sales signals, triggering signals, writing a signal via API. So, these are real-time notifications on touch points. So when you're in the CRM, you've got the little bell up top. There's a lot you can do to trigger them. You don't have to just necessarily go with the standard signals that Zoho sets up. You can write your own. And this is a nice little guide on how to do that. Have we ever done anything like this? I don't think we've ever written any custom signals.
No, we've never written any custom signals. I might have to give this one a read myself.
Yeah, it looks pretty good. And then a really strange guide we found, but actually I read through it's pretty nice. This is Zoho will tell you what's an SMB. It's not what you've been told. So it really kind of goes through what it means to be a small business or small to mid-sized business, why you need Zoho products for your business, and we're taking a look at. So, good job for the team who keeps digging these guides out. I don't know how, but we do see maybe we're getting a little slim. I don't know. We could be reaching the end of the rope here, but not quite yet. Yeah, all right. And that brings us to our application of the week. This is cool. This is our web developer, Tavin. For those of you we actually have someone who will do web work and do those kind of things. It comes in a really, really handy, I've found, since we've brought them on board, because there's so many clients, they just need little cleanups, or they're trying to embed a form and they just can't get it to look right. And Tavin can just go in and clean it up. And it's helped with us as we've launched the CRM Zen Show and all kinds of our internal properties. And so part of this is we've been completely redoing the Zenatta website. As a matter of fact, a week from now, if you check back, the homepage for Zenatta will be completely different and rearranged. I think it's going to look great. Anyway, it's $49 a year for a single site, and basically Elementor allows you to build a page. So, we do a lot with Google Ads, and a lot of our clients, if you're whether using anything that requires a landing page, if you're on WordPress, you might want to take a look at this. It's just so dead simple to build really, really, really nice looking pages. And, they're very, very professional across the board. You can just do overlays and
it almost reminds me of like the ability to design in Squarespace, which Squarespace, of course, not as functional as WordPress, but you can build absolutely beautiful pages. And this kind of gives me that same feel, though I'm not a designer. I've played around in a couple of those tools, and I've actually even tinkered with this one myself, and it does just give you that, so easy. I can make a page look decent, and someone like Tavin can make a page look pretty great.
Yeah. And take someone who knows what they're doing. It takes it to the next level. It really does. And so, we did so we've got our Ring Central landing page got done. They just look really, really nice. And our Shopify landing page, looks really good for all of our Shopify integration that we're doing with Zoho. And, then our Google Ads management page. I mean, this is just nice, easy to build out. You can keep a clean, consistent look. You can easily change them. I have to say, I'm really pleased with the application. It's just really spiffing things up. So if you're a WordPress user and you got landing pages, you want to spiff some things up, I'd take a look at Elementor, and that's our application of the week. And our tip and trick, this was another follow-on, Tyler, to what we did in Zoho Books, our Zoho Books webinar, I should say. And this was on reporting tags. I think we just briefly touched on them. So I kind of wanted to go into a little more detail. What this allows you to do simply is create tags that you can add to a transaction, create tags that you can add to a product, that you can add to a customer. And then when you go into Zoho Books reporting, which is very, very, very minimal, you can't do a lot. But one of the things you can do is you then can filter on these tags. So in most cases, for most of our Zoho Books clients, I think we're yanking it up into analytics and we're doing everything there. But this really allows you to kind of just dive in and, create these tags yourself. It really can simplify your overall reporting, and it's worth taking a look at. And this is just a YouTube video, and I think it's like 4 minutes long. That's going to step you through how to build out tags. And that brings us to our Q&A. We don't really have any questions this week. Kevin, who's the listener, was talking about, when we're talking about accounts and the misspelling of accounts. It's funny, we covered a lot on that. Not just do you have that little account wizard now when you put in the name, but this duplication of accounts by misspelling, right? Mm-hmm. One letter off, capitalization, those kind of things. There's not a lot we can really do about that, is there? I mean, even in the script that was written, can we say, hey, if it's not proper, but it has the same letters? I mean, I guess we could look at that. That would be a whole nother level of logic.
You could, yeah. You would need to remove some, anything that's not alphanumeric or something like that. The big one, and the way that I would see the wizard being pretty useful, is website. The website that a client has, we know, is going to be unique to them, almost how an email, right, would be unique. You can treat it like email domain almost. I've also had that as well, where even without even requiring a website, you literally just type in their email domain, and then you can have that be a mandatory unique field in the accounts. That's kind of one way to solve it. because it is always that issue is how many different ways could you write Zenatta, right? You could write Zenatta, Zenatta Co, Zenatta Consulting, right? Now you've got 3 Zenattas in there.
But you'd only want to look at anything after the first dot, right? Or no dot. I mean, that would be the whole thing, because people are going to do www. They're going to put in HTTP or HTTPS, right?
Yeah, that's why sometimes I've actually created a separate field for email domain, where the standard is you don't include any of that. You just put zenatta.com, because that would be our email domain. So that's one that I found is actually pretty effective for it, if you make that a required field, because if you're adding an account, hopefully you have at least one person's email address, right? So you should know their domain. So it can be kind of a good fix in general for it, but it's always kind of that game of cat and mouse when it comes to deduplication. Yeah,
it really is. All right, and that is a wrap. We want to thank everybody for listening. If you have any questions or comments, you can drop them to us over at info@zenatta.com or head over to the CRM Zen Show, our crmzen.com, and drop us a line.
And on the website is where you'll find complete episodes as well as show notes with links to all the stories we discussed today. You can follow us on your favorite social media platforms and subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app as well as on YouTube. We'll see you next Monday.